Look what arrived in the mail last week. It is the Ancient Way Book of Dreams. And it's not our dreams. This is for your dreams.
In the beginning, we actually put a load of questions to help guide you through your own dream interpretation. You don't need a guru. You don't need anybody. You actually just have you and the Lord. If you get stuck on anything or you're like, hey, I don't even know where to start, this will help you just kind of get comfortable in understanding your dreams. So people can actually learn, what do I even do with the dream that I have? It's a short guide, but it's really just a whole lot of space for you to start putting pen to the paper.
People neglect Christianity. It's like you mention it, and it's like,
right, yeah.
I know what you're about.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But
like, I'm not that weird.
yeah,
I'm not that kind of Christian.
Right.
I ain't that one. I used to be that one. I ain't that one
we can
anymore.
reclaim it. I think we can
saved.
reclaim a lot of things, even the words and stuff. Anyways,
You ready for this
action. We're rolling.
Okay.
Welcome to the Ancient Way. We have Matt Tommey with us yet again. Matt, thank you for joining us. And we have proof that it's actually Matt. Because we're on video.
Proof of life, right here on the
Matt Tommey's in the studio.
You saw it first.
Yes.
I love it.
Man. Well,
this
thanks
isn't
for
CGI either.
coming on. Yeah, this is not an AI copy of Matt. This is the Matt Tommey. I meant to ask if you wanted coffee or water.
No, I'm great.
Prior.
I'm great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man, a lot going on. You made a post yesterday that struck such a chord with me, and I would imagine a bunch of other
A lot of
people.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, about maybe feeling as if God has fluttered away or kind of left. And it's like, well, you're kind of on your own right here, buddy.
Yeah.
Or I've described it as there's an invisible goalie blocking goodness. There's a goodness constipation for some reason. And it's like, what is the deal with this?
Yeah.
You know? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. 'Cause you posted it, and I'm like, yeah, Matt's tapping into something very real.
Yeah. Well, it's been my story, and I think as I talk to leaders and just regular folks, it's a lot of the stories that people are sharing right now of like something over the last couple of years just feels like it's not the way it used to be. It's not as easy. It's not flowing.
Yeah.
And I think for all of us that are passionate about vision and vision casting and walking in the favor of God and abundance and, seeing breakthrough and God show up in demonstrable ways when that shifts or stops in any way or just doesn't happen the way that we perceive it ought to, we automatically think, I'm in sin, God's left me and I'm on my own and all this kind of thing. And I think we end up trying to equate the favor of God with the presence of God.
Yeah.
And, the presence of God is in us and through us and with us because we're kingdom people, right? It's part of the package. He doesn't leave, or go off the set just because things aren't looking the way, that we think they ought to. And yet when his favor is not the way it seemed it has been in the past, or when things are not showing up, blessing is not showing up in our life, the enemy immediately comes in with fear and accusation and confusion and all that, saying that you've somehow missed it or God's left you or you're in sin or, you've sterilized your life somehow and God's off the grid. And I think it's what I'm learning at 50 is, especially in a season where I've walked through a lot of favor, demonstrable experiential favor, and then I'm in a season right now that is very much rest oriented and recalibrating oriented. You have to realize that is just as much, if not more, the Lord than the other seasons, and God's in all of it.
Yeah.
And just because God changes the way he provides doesn't change his promise to provide.
Yep.
Just because he changes the way that he's with us doesn't mean change his promise to be with us and in us. And so I think it's calling all of us to maturity, but of course the enemy wants to come in and capitalize on that any way he can. So
I love that. I think for me, just in you saying that, I was like, I feel like one of the major things is like learning the ways of God.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just knowing like, he shows up in demonstrative ways, but it's like, no, all of his ways are pure.
Yeah, it's all the kingdom.
Yeah. It doesn't, like, there is no hierarchy really in the kingdom of his presence. Like, how he shows up is how he shows up, and it's actually what is needed for you.
Right.
Like, you're wanting, maybe people have an expectation of like, I want it to show up in this way. But I think the key is like, no, the Lord is showing up in the very way that you need him.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that's going to be what unlocks you and unlocks for the next step. And I think it is that key that even you said in that post that I flipping love. James and I instantly talked about it. I was like, golly,
did you see that post that Matt made yesterday?
But you said it after every line. It was like, you are not alone.
Yeah.
And I think that is like the actual play of the enemy with everything is like, you're alone.
Yeah.
You're going to have to figure that out by yourself.
You're the only one.
This is only happening to you.
Right.
You're all by yourself. And it's like, well, no, he's with me.
Yeah.
Right.
Why would I ever be alone?
Right.
Like I had a dream last night about that very thing. It was like there was a man who was walking with me and we were actually casting out the stench of death. But I was so afraid about this death. I was like, this is just too gross to touch.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm not worried about it. I'll touch it.
Right.
So he would go in and he would step in and he would touch the dead man and remove the stench. And then he positioned me. He took me away into like this arena thing. And he was like, it is time for communion. And so then there was this literally a ceremony of communion that was happening. But that's what it makes me think of. Just what you're saying is like, it feels like this season of rest is actually a season of communion for people to really connect to him and all the things that he paid for, and how it's not limited. It's not, and it's not even compartmentalized.
Right. Well, it's easy to talk about the goodness of God and God's presence and all that when everything's flowing like we think it ought to. And I think for me, 2009, God gave me this vision of raising up an army of artists and honest to God, everything that I touched from then on until a couple of years ago just turned to gold.
Yeah.
Every book that I wrote, business thing that I did, if I'd asked for one, God would give me three, double doors of favor. I mean, it's just like you couldn't do any wrong. And inside you start to believe, well, of course I found the secret, praise God. And, I need to tell this secret. Well, you found a secret, you found a way that God works, but you did not find the way that God works, And so now, I've been in a season this last couple of years where it's been almost the exact opposite, that things that we've done in business for years that have just always worked and been so profitable, not only financially, but with people, just don't work. And you're sitting there thinking, well, what have I done wrong? God, why have you removed your favor? And he's like, you're asking the wrong question. The question is, why is your heart so tied to the results?
Yeah.
So good.
Yep. That's it.
So good.
I don't want to hear that. Even I'll just give you a real straight up example. So I'm walking through this last couple of years with my wife and our company, and we're still doing great, but it's like not what it was. And but I'm just struggling with this whole thing of the results. And so we have a huge yard. We've got 4 acres up in Lindale, and it was an old pasture and ton of weeds and everything. So I've been killing the weeds off these last couple of years that we've been up there. And finally this spring, we got to the point where I hired a guy to come out and we killed off all the weeds, plowed it up, and got ready to do hydroseed. Not an inexpensive thing. So he comes out and sprays all this hydroseed, and man, I've just got vision. I'm an artist, right? I can see in my imagination. I'm seeing this grass come up in Jesus' name. I mean, I'm just like, it's going to be gorgeous, And we put it down, and we're watering it. We're doing all the stuff. 5 days goes by. He said, well, it should sprout in 5 to 7 days. 5 days, nothing. 6 days, nothing. 7 days, nothing. 3 weeks, nothing. And I'm like, what is going on? I mean, this is like a lot of money we've put into this thing. And turns out something that I'd sprayed, one of my pre-emergents or something like that, was so strong that it keeps seeds from sprouting in your yard for 18 months to 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Well, I'm gutted. I'm beyond gutted. I'm pissed. I'm like, wow, I'm just like, and of course, I'm like, God, how can you do that? Yeah. And he's like, again, why are you so worried about your identity being determined by the results? And I was told we're in the pool the other day. I was talking to my mother-in-law about this, and she's like, why is that such a big deal for you? And I'm like, because my whole life, my whole thing has always been, don't make me look bad. And the Lord's like, yeah, and that's what I'm trying to get at.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get at, because because you can't go to the next place that I've got for you until you get through that. And I don't care how much you preached on identity and the love of God and the kingdom and all that. We all got those places
totally
in our heart.
That's where he's gunning for too.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm just like, Jesus, I'm just trying to grow grass. He's and I'm trying to get your heart.
Yeah.
And if it takes business or finances or your grass or a relationship or a business thing or whatever it is, I'm going to use it so that I can mature you into the person that I've called you to be.
Yeah.
So good.
I had a dream a couple of nights ago. I don't even know what day it is, but a couple of nights ago, I had a dream where they were going to elect the next president, or I guess name who it was. Yeah. And I'm sitting there in this just crowd of people, and I'm like, I know who it's going to be.
Yeah.
And I'm not even, I've never been much of a political. I keep an eye on stuff, but I'm watching it, and it's somebody completely out of left field, and the crowd is pissed off.
Yeah.
They start booing. Well, then the person that won starts preaching and saying all this stuff. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. They're saying, they're speaking truth right there. Yeah. You could feel it hitting you. But so many people were in uproar because it wasn't the person that they thought it was
going to be. Right.
But the meaning of it, it's like, oh, wait a minute, where's the Lord in this?
Yeah.
It's like disregard everything else. And like, where is he in it? And he showed up to the disciples and everybody in the, in the Gospels, and they couldn't recognize him.
Yeah. Unexpected ways.
Yeah. Unexpected ways.
It honestly kind of reminds me of Judas, in just like, he had such an expectation that the Lord was going to conquer in this way.
Right.
You know, he was going to, no, we're going to actually overthrow the kingdom. It's going to be like this. And Jesus is actually going to be the actual king. And because of that, because of the misinterpretation and the expectation, really, he didn't yield to how the Lord was actually doing things. He tried to usurp it in his own strength. And I think that's almost like the wrestle is like, are you going to go and try and do it in your own strength? Or are you going to yield and let all the kind of the pruning, kind of what Peter did, let the pruning happen. So then you're actually in fully flying in how the Lord created you. You know, because I think we were talking about this. I think that's where the signs and wonders, like all these things that people like want, like the big vision of like abundance and signs and wonders and all this stuff, but it comes through the heart being yielded, and it comes through like the pruning and, just actually allowing the refinement so we look more like him, period.
That's the branch of questions that I've asked myself. He showed me these questions a while back, but it's like, kind of separate, go into third person, heavenly perspective, you're seated in heavenly places, and look at it. And it's like, okay, where are you at in this? Yeah. But the better question is like, how am I going to become more like you through this? And just really redirect focus. Like, what is this about? It is definitely a heart issue. Yeah. Almost all the time, or a perspective shift.
Right.
It's a secret button that you don't really see when you're in the middle of it.
Well, the beautiful thing is, I think none of that makes God nervous. Our humanity doesn't make him nervous, because I mean, he's the one that created us with this, right? I mean, so he knows that we're on a journey. But I think especially with all that we've seen, not only in the political realm, especially as Texans and all that's gone on in ministries being called out over the last even month of what's going on over in Dallas and all this kind of stuff, there is this realization that, you know, you can keep pushing and you can keep building this thing on your own. But you're going to reap the whirlwind. You know, in the middle of it. And somebody, I don't know who said this years ago, not my quote, but you know, your talent will take you where your character can't keep you.
Man,
And there's a lot of stuff that we can do in our own strength, and it's only by the grace of God that we realize where we're not strong. You know, so that we can get those places healed up and so that we can, you know, yield those to him and keep walking with him. And so I just, if we can keep on that journey and realize whether I'm in plenty or whether I'm in times of, you know, just kind of making it, God's still there and he still loves me and he's still got a plan, but I got to trust him in the middle of that. Otherwise I cannot step into the next thing he has for me.
That's good.
So,
What would that, so somebody that was like kind of in that valley and like trying to actually like develop trust, what would you, like what little key would you give of like staying in or like being able to have that resolve or that lock in? What would be a key for that?
Well, I think all of us tend to be led by our emotions. And so I work with creatives mostly. And so especially creative people are led by our emotions. And that's why we have God's word, because it has to be the standard. And I think the big thing that most, 21st century Christians don't have is a knowledge of God's word, who he says they are, what he can do, the nature of God, the inherent goodness of God in all things, the fact that his word says he's never going to leave us or forsake us. But I don't feel like it. Well, it doesn't matter. It matters what you feel like, but it doesn't supplant what God's word says. And so I think that's what renewing your mind is all about, is continually taking thoughts captive and comparing them to the word of God. And say, now, does this feeling that I have and this experience that I have match the truth of God's word? And if it doesn't, I'm the one that's got to shift.
Yeah.
The word of God doesn't shift. And otherwise, we're blown around by every wind of doctrine that comes along.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
Yeah.
That is good.
Yeah. One thing I'm coming to realize, too, in this whole situation, one thing is that my initial goal was like, let me know you. I remember having to sacrifice everything that I thought, even my purpose and destiny, having to let go of it and like almost sacrifice it or shell it. Like, I'm not doing this. Priority needs to be you. And I need to be okay without that stuff.
Yeah.
And turns out he's actually good. And he actually gave me that stuff for him to fulfill it. It's not like, oh, okay. It's a relief and it's better than before. But trusting him with the little things, and like he'll give you stuff that he knows you're capable of conquering it. And I think a lot of this weird dry season constipation stuff is like, I think it really is an opportunity to really apply faith to the world, and almost to the point where it pierces the veil of the world of like, you have no reason to continue what you're doing. You have no reason to even have hope in this. Evidence suggesting otherwise. But there's something about, why do they keep going? Why is he still in that? He sees something, but him pulling through. And it's like his glory to be revealed, I think, is through us. Yeah. But
Well, God's no less God, just because I don't feel like I'm doing anything purposeful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm up at the Dollar General or I'm cutting my grass or whatever, he's still God on board, inside moving. Can do anything he wants to. I'm finding myself in this season of seemingly non-purpose, having the most divine appointments and, God conversations with people that I've ever had that just kind of come out of the blue. But the book I wrote last year, God's Plan for Living, I talked about this whole thing of God's ideal. And I continue to believe that ideal is identity, design, expansion, alignment, and love. And I just continue to believe this, that as our identity in Christ is established, our design is uncovered, and then our assignment gets revealed.
Yeah. And
when we try to put go after our assignment outside of the place of identity and design, we get it screwed up. Yeah. And, but we think, I got to go do this for God. And he's like, he's not asking you to go do that. He's asking you to walk with him.
Yeah.
And, just like Jesus said, I want to do the things I see you doing.
That's a big one. Yeah.
Every day. And if you're doing nothing in me right now, but cutting the grass and learning to love people and develop some deeper friendships, then that's what I need right now. And I got to trust you in that, even though it feels completely useless. And, this is the first time in my life I'm waking up every day and I'm like, I'm working about 4 hours a week right now. And otherwise I'm free.
Yeah.
Like when you call me for this, I'm like, I'm wide open, baby. Whatever you need. But it feels weird. It feels like I'm not stewarding well what God's given me.
Yeah.
And God's like, I'm trying to work on you right now.
Yeah.
Not have you doing things.
Yeah.
And so
it's cool. It's like a dance with him.
Yeah.
It's like he's moving that step. Let me go in this direction. It's rest time. Let's rest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's sweet.
That is so cool. I got that book because I loved it. I love the way that you lined out the whole ideal thing. And I think that is such a flippin' key, is like everything starts. Look, people are always looking for their purpose and they want to be in purpose and they want their identity. And it's like, no, it literally starts with you knowing you're beloved.
Right.
Period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think those seasons of rest is so you actually get more in the depths and the intimacy of beloved.
Yeah.
It's like, so you see him as you're cutting the grass, where you're enjoying the mundanity of life, because he did create the boring things too. Like, I think those things are actually carved in for a reason.
Yep. Provision is much more supernatural, I think, when you have nothing to bring to the table.
Yeah.
And for all of us that have been teaching on kingdom entrepreneurship and, you know, going with God in the marketplace and all this kind of stuff, you're used to this idea of, you know, God gives me the plan and the vision and I'm going to partner with him and he's going to do this. It's like, well, what happens when there's only a promise, not a plan?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when you have nothing to bring to the table and yet God still shows up? I mean, last time I checked over these last 2 years, my business is still bringing in money, but none of our marketing is working. I'm still getting, you know, we're still provided for in every way abundantly. God's still showing up. And it's like, and that's with me doing nothing. Or feeling like I'm doing nothing. And I think that's, again, so important for all of us that are believing kingdom entrepreneurship and all this. Is like, you think you're bringing all this to the table. And yes, there is an element of partnership in it, but it's all him.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is his story that we get to be a part of.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
It reminds me of a dream that I had a couple of weeks ago, actually, where I was given literally a message and they said, do not succumb to the pressure of performance. Do not do that. And it was in the same mentality. I was like, no, I want to be faithful with what you've given me.
Yeah.
But there was so much pressure attached to it that it was like, that's the wrong fruit. Like, do not go under that. And it was such a directive that as soon as I would feel that thing, I'd be like, I'm not doing it. Like, and it was super contrary. And I've even gotten backlash from other people now for it. I mean, literally. And it's like, when you walk in the way of the kingdom, it's just different. You do things different. And because for the Lord to bring $100,000 is nothing for people. Like, it literally is nothing for him. He's so much more concerned about the heart so that you can hold as soon as it's ready, bang, there it is, you know? But you said that and it just made me think that. It's just like, that's
a good question too. On the flip side of that coin, I'm one that I'll just sit there, I'll take what he says and I'll do something with it. But now I'm to the point, like, what degree do we do? Do we actually implement something? And over the past several years, I've realized recently, like, hey, you're surrounded by a console of buttons that you could have been pushing this whole time. And I'm like, oh, so I'm just pushing them all right now. But I've always had this mentality of, like, if you do it, you're doing it in your own strength. But what degree? The fear of it. What degree, or I mean, how do you navigate that? It's like, what degree do we do? Are we doers? You know, instead of seeing it, but
I'm just a big believer in being led by peace and recognizing where I feel the grace. And like, there's a lot of things in business or in life that you could be doing, you know, and that are good techniques that all the gurus say, oh, you should do this and you'll get 10x your blah, blah, blah. And it's like, great, but is it God, and is it God for me right now? You know, in this situation. And I think that is the discernment that I'm always trying to do, because even in situations like just in the very natural of things that we've done in our business that worked phenomenally, you know, where we were getting 10, 15x our investment, now they're not working. And so the immediate thing is, well, you need to change strategies and go find it. And I'm like, well, I could go do that, but it's like everything that we've tried to do is not working. And so when I start seeing a pattern, I'm like, this ain't about the strategy.
Sure not.
This is for me in this situation. This is about maybe God's turning the ship. And so I'm going to pull back a little bit, you know, turn my engine down a little bit, and I'm going to try to feel the wind. You know, I'm going to go from a motorboat to a sailboat. You know, and like, okay, Lord, where are you going here? Because I want to be where the wind is going. Because we can with our own motorboat of, you know, of skill and passion and anointing, gifts of God without repentance. We can go and do a whole bunch of great things, but you got to get out there and maintain it in your. And so I think at this age and place in my life, I'm always like, man, I don't want to just be doing good things. And I sure don't want to build a business and a team and a movement of people that are all built out of my strength. Because at the end of the day, when you do that, that's what the enemy, I think, is looking for the most, is for us to get out there and do things in our own strength. And I'd rather be unknown and uncelebrated, but right in the middle of what God's doing, knowing that his the safety and protection of his presence is around me than out there trying to make a name, for myself or make money or whatever.
Yeah. So. It's like we're here to build his kingdom on his accord.
Yeah.
You just said that and I instantly pictured me sitting in the wilderness by a fire. And it's like, I would much rather be with him in the wilderness than anywhere else. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want to be in Egypt. I don't want all the money. I would much rather be in that pocket. And so you said that and it like ignited something in me. I was like, yes. It was clarity that I needed. So I apprecited that. It's so true. The key, listen, you could talk forever, Matt. I'm just being honest. Because it's so simple. It is that simple, like being led by peace and what you're saying. And like, we kind of joke about it. We're like the exact opposite people. I'm like, let's just go do it and let's go do it. Like, let's knock it out. And these are going to be the things and whatever. And I have had a big halt of like, don't do anything.
Right.
I live in my dreams.
And James is over here like, I'm freaking doing everything.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And so he's like really activated. And I feel like I've been like, because I don't know how many times I've apologized to you. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm not really pulling my weight over here. But it's so funny. It's almost like the exact opposites within people are being pulled out.
Right.
Yeah.
Like what people are naturally geared toward. It's like, hey, let's actually strengthen these weak muscles that you have. So you're more well-rounded.
Yeah. Well, every time the Lord has opened up a door for us, we've known it.
Yeah.
It's not been something that we've had to guess about or, it's either come through a dream or a vision or just a like demonstrable, like, this is the way, walk in it, kind of situation. And I just find that that's how the Lord has led us. And so for us in this season right now, that's kind of what we're waiting on. And so we try to steward well what we have, and it doesn't mean we're like shutting anything down or anything. It just means that we're kind of in a, we got the trolling motor on instead of the, your big old engine. And we're just kind of we're just comfortable in doing what's good, what God's got for us right now. Yeah. And it's okay.
Yeah.
So,
that's good.
Yep.
Have you ever seen yourself go through cycles, or do you feel like this is like a new season, or has this been like a cycle that sometimes will come around for you?
Well, I think there's always, there have definitely been seasons of favor and then recalibration where you feel like, man, I'm walking in it. And you're like, finally, I got it. Like, yes, I know the secret to the kingdom, all this. Of course, some friends of mine tell me like, Matt, you wrote a book called God's Plan for Living. Of course, he's going to challenge you on, like, do you really know? God, like you got chapter 1, you don't have the rest of it, but not a, pretentious title at all. But it's like, there've been seasons, I think, where you do the best with what you have and you walk in maturity that you have. And then God says, awesome, that was so great. And we're going to pull back and we're going to show you the things that we're not totally mature in you yet.
Yeah.
We're going to work those things out, whether it takes a month or 3 years.
Yeah.
And then and then all of a sudden, when all of that is no longer important, and when you're like at, point of desperation or point of just like, I just want to be with Jesus. I just want to, it doesn't matter. All of a sudden out of the blue, okay, here's the next thing.
Yeah.
Because your heart's not tied to the outcome. Your heart's tied to the one that's bringing the outcome.
Good. Yeah.
And now I can bring that. And so I think it is these waves, and the more you walk with the Lord, the more you have to walk in those things.
That's good.
There is no just, keep going on glory to glory to glory to glory to glory. And, we all have to go through times of retuning and refocus and recalibration. So
humility and like clay being malleable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I went on a run last week and I was just praying to him. I was probably saying some not nice things to him. Just like,
what's up, God?
Yeah, what are you doing? Yeah. Honesty and transparency,
That's
which I love that I can comfortably just whatever, talk to him and he's cool with it. But I was like, could you just throw me a bone? I always ask him, like probably annually,
right?
Could you throw me a bone right about now?
Right.
I want to see something or know that you're with me.
Yeah.
And I went on this jog, and it was an evening jog too. So the sun's going down. I had the 80s music playing. It was just this synthwave prayer time. And I started seeing little things. I saw 2 rocks on my path. There's 2 big old rocks, which made me think of 2 Peter, which is what I've been reading pretty recently. And then I came across this locust that was walking in my direction, and then knocking on heaven's door comes on, And I'm like, locust, John the Baptist, that's like sustenance in the wilderness. Like this is where we thrive at. And then I was jogging further down and I was lit up by the music and the locusts, and I found this little washer that means something to me and said AJC on it. And I'm running and I hear this little, it was like a bell, like ding, ding. And I turn around and I'm like, who is crazy enough to be out here in the middle of nowhere?
Right.
And there's this little old black guy on a mini scooter, and he's got this big blue sweater on and like a blue toboggan. And he's just like a mini scooter.
Yeah.
Goes by me, and I'm like, this is the strangest thing. I'm not about to let him just go by me without talking to him.
Right.
What if that's an angel? I question stuff. I'm like, no, I'm catching it.
Yeah.
So I take my headphones off, and I'm like, did you just ding your bell at me? And he turns around, nicest guy in the world. He's like, yeah, I didn't want you to be afraid. Just wanted you to know I'm right behind you. And then he goes on, and then he's just, I don't know where he went down the path. But I got back in my car, and this was a 30-minute little jog. And I'm just restored. I'm like, oh, I totally feel his presence on me.
Yeah.
I had the chill on my spine. Like, I just felt lit up. And it really is what matters.
Yeah.
It's like he's with you. He's behind you. He's
right.
Yeah, anyways.
Yeah, I love it.
That's all that matters, really.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I think that's the point. It's like in lack or in plenty, like you're saying. You learn to find him and look at him and just be with him in the worst of the worst or the best of the best.
Right.
It really is all that matters.
Right.
So
yeah, because I think especially for those of us that are, in business, we all have our own businesses and all this kind of stuff. You realize all of it is fleeting.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
I mean, you can lose something in a moment. You can have a windfall in a moment. And so the only constant is the Lord.
Yeah.
And your inner life with him and being able to continue to cultivate that.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Yeah. I think that's that wood, hay, and stubble thing.
Yeah.
People can get so lost.
Poof, right.
Yeah. It's just like, when the fire hits that thing,
Yeah.
you see what it was actually built on.
Yeah.
That was kind of, not to bring up the story that you said, but just that guy who had, 10, 12 businesses.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, things going on behind the scenes that he wasn't aware of, just snatched it in a second. And it's like, you can do all these things to try and protect yourself and like guard against all this stuff. But the reality is like, the fire will come.
Right.
And the fire will expose what are you built upon.
Yeah.
Which I think is beautiful. You can either be afraid of the fire or be like, I'm being refined.
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
being
Prepared for the next moment.
Yeah.
It's like that scripture, I'll butcher it, but it's that one that like, don't see this fiery trial as if it's some strange thing happening to you.
Yeah.
It's like there's a purpose in this.
Right.
It's for his glory to be revealed.
Right.
So,
Well, and you think of it, 2 Peter, you mentioned, I think 2 Peter 1, 3, and 4, that we've already been given everything we need for life and godliness, and we participate in the divine nature, fullness of the kingdom, through what? The very precious promises of God, that we might escape the world, the lust of the world.
Yeah.
And lust is all about, it's many times, right, a natural desire pointed in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
I want success. I want to make an impact. I want to do all these great things, but I'm pointing it in a direction that's based on me and my strength, as opposed to the promises of God that say what? I'll never leave you or forsake you.
Yeah.
That I'm your provider.
Yeah.
That, those are the things, the building blocks of our life. And lest those get out of place, I mean, that's where things go wrong. And so it's constant. I think, talking about what do you do if you're in a situation where you're off the rails right now, it's going back, renewing your mind through the promises of God. Who does God say he is? Who does he say I am in the middle of that? And let this be my rock. So.
Yeah. I think it's the speaking into identity. I love that. It says that you may be partakers of the divine nature.
Yeah.
It's like the whole thing about life and godliness is to be partakers in the divine nature.
Yeah.
Which far exceeds everything else. It's like there's nothing more exhilarating to me than unlocking somebody, than to like releasing life over somebody.
Yeah.
Like you can get so caught up in like what's happening with me and like what's happening in my world. And, I talk to you about some situations going on with me, and it's like, well, you can get narrow focused into that, or you can also say, what are other little seeds I can sow?
Right.
Like, don't get laser focused in what's happening or not happening.
Right.
But like, who's the little offshoot that I can go sow into?
Yeah.
Or how can I not take the bait?
Yeah.
As John Bevere said how many years ago, the bait of Satan. How can I not, take the thing that he's trying to throw out for me to get?
Yeah, that reminds me that I was going through another situation where the Lord said, wherever division is tried to be sown, sow unity.
Yeah.
And it's like sow the very opposite thing. Right. Because you will see so much. And even if it's not in that specific situation that you can actually have access to yet, go find somebody else you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because everything in the spirit realm, they speak. Yeah. Everybody hears everything. Like, we're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. Like, nothing's off the table. You're not doing anything in private. So go hit up somebody. Yeah.
Well, it's whatever you come into agreement with. You're opening the door for that to operate in your life. And so if the enemy's bringing drama and emotionalism and fear and anxiety, if you get into the middle of that and start stirring it up, you're just saying, come on in. I want more of that in my life, as opposed to saying, nope. I am the righteousness of Christ. I walk in peace. I'm already provided for. I don't have to walk in fear. I'm going to, you come, like you said, the opposite spirit, and that makes all the difference.
What a special opportunity that is. Because in those moments, like, you have every right to snap back at him. But if you can just catch that and like say, I totally feel this and I want to hurt that person, but I'm not doing it. I'm choosing not to do this.
Right. Because the enemy will always make you think that those situations are the things that are going to make or break you.
Totally.
Yeah.
But when you have a revelation of the King and of provision, you realize you can take my business tomorrow. God's still my provider. You can take my reputation tomorrow. God's still the one that says I'm his son.
Yeah.
That he's for me. And I mean, so when you have nothing to lose. Yeah. You can walk through anything. And that's obviously a challenge for all of us.
Yeah. He wants us there.
Yeah. But when you have nothing to lose, you also have everything to gain, because he can do anything through you, because you're not afraid to walk into anything or to lay anything down that you might need,
That's good.
So.
Yeah. I was just talking to my husband about that, it was interesting. We were just kind of talking about just seasons in our life and things that had kind of walked through. And he was like, what's interesting is that thing that the Lord led me to that was like the one big yield, the one thing that I felt like I couldn't let go of. And he was like, you remember when I finally broke and I was just like, here it is. He was like, look at all the fruit that's come out of that. Yeah. And it's like that, to me, it hit me so hard, because I was like, that's where it is. I think that's where it is for so many people, is like the one big yield, that one thing that you feel like I just don't understand, or I can't let that thing go. If you let it go and you actually surrender it, there will be so much fruit that comes out of it. Yeah. And it's been, this has been years of this thing still unraveling fruit for him. That's just, it's brilliant to me. Yeah. Like, that is actually the way of the King. Yeah. Like, he wants actually us to reap. He's not doing things to punish us or, because he's always trying to fix us. Yeah. It's like he's actually wanting us to be who he created us to be. Yeah. We have misinterpreted life. We've misinterpreted situations, and it's caused us to respond in a different way. Right. And I think it's like, hey, now we're just unlearning. Yeah. Not trying to be fixed. That's how my religious little shame mind used to always interpret. Yeah, sure. Like that the Lord was like always trying to fix me. Yeah. Like, oh, we got to deal with more issues in my heart. Right. Mm-hmm. It's like, God dang, am I ever going to get there? And it's like, well, no, it's actually not about that. Right. You're not broken, and he's not trying to fix you. Yeah. He's trying to actually cause you to shine. Hearing CeCe Winans the other day talking about this guy, she's on this huge last couple of years, just like she's come back from nowhere, and now she's like number one and everything, and all of her albums, everybody's listening to her and all this. And I think the story was, 10 years ago or more, she was just burned out and was just like tired of the music business and all this kind of stuff, and felt like the Lord was saying, I want you to go focus on your church. And she was just like, is it over? And like, is the whole thing done? Like, what's going on? But it wasn't that. She just said, I just, that's where the peace was. That's where the grace was. And I did. And she said, I just laid the whole thing down. And I went over here and just faithfully served in the church and growing that and doing the thing. And then all of a sudden, when the music, it's like when it didn't have a hold of your heart anymore, then the Lord says, okay, now I'm going to bring this back. And it's going to be 10 times better than it ever was. And watch this, So
I've had to do that with my movie that I've been working on for 3 years. I think it was last fall. Was it last fall or the one before it? Right. And it was just, I'm like, I'm finishing this this year and I'm just going to do it.
Right.
And it was not the right thing to do. It's like, no, why don't you shelf this for a little bit?
Right.
And it's one of those like, oh man, I've allowed that to grip my heart.
Absolutely.
Well, let's let go and pry it off a little bit and just shelf it until you are led by peace or joy.
That's right.
For several months, and the cool thing about doing that is not only did I not let it steer my wheel, but new people and opportunities and technology showed up that seasoned the movie and made it better. It's like, it's like 10 times better than it would have been had I finished it then.
Right. Now I'm actually ready. Right.
Now I'm actually ready and had a couple of sacrificial moments with that movie. Sure. But it's only gotten better.
Yeah.
And I'm not tied to it. And I think you can more responsibly steward stuff if you're not so hell-bent on that being your anchor, you know?
Yeah.
But
well, he's always concerned about us, our formation, not what we're putting out.
Yeah.
And our hearts always want to go, Lord, look what we're doing for you. And he's like, yeah, I appreciate it. But, awesome, but let's look at you. Let's look at you.
That's good. And he's trustworthy with us.
Yep.
That's the sweet thing, like fully.
Yep.
He's not going to mess you up
And like we said earlier, our humanity, I don't think makes God nervous.
Yeah.
I mean, he created us to be the way we are. He knows the ups and downs. Yeah. This is not taking him by surprise. It takes us by surprise.
Yeah.
I thought this was going to be faster or better or whatever. And he's like, no, this is just the way it's going. And you're doing great. And just keep saying yes to me. And but this is hard. I know it is, but we're going to get through it.
Yeah.
He's a good father.
He is. He is.
Real though. So I was going to ask you, we kind of hit on the identity thing. And I think because I think you blend perfectly business and the creative. Like, it's just brilliant. Because you got some, creatives that are just, they hadn't figured out the practical. And then you got some business people that just leave off true creativity. Because I think that can show up in your business.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to people who are like trying to find that line of balance and even trying to move through that? Could you speak into that? Can you hit into those kind of people? Like, any kind of thoughts you have on that?
It's always this balance between word and spirit, right? I mean, and if you want to say, structure versus spontaneity or whatever. And I love that verse in Proverbs that says, it takes wisdom and knowledge and understanding wisdom and understanding to build a house. Yeah. And so you got to know the practical things to do, but at the same time, you got to have understanding of why and wisdom to win, to do all of those things. And so I think so many people that have, these dreams that they feel like are God dreams, that's great. But a part of stewarding that God dream is going out and getting the knowledge and wisdom and understanding that you need to be able to execute on that. I can't tell you how many artists and even business people that I've met over the years, they got a prophetic word 10 years ago that, man, you're going to be an artist to the nations, or God's going to use you to, create millions of jobs or whatever it is. And they're like, I'm just still waiting on God to do it. I'm just believing. And I'm like, well, he's waiting on you. Like, what have you done? And so there is this cooperating, but it's at the pace, of his leadership. It's like, what is it? Proverbs 16:9, in his heart, a man plans his way.
Yeah.
So that's our responsibility. But the Lord orders his steps.
Yeah.
So I got to be planning and stepping.
Yeah.
And then God, and along that journey, there are obviously seasons of pause, retooling, training, backstep maybe. Yeah. But he's the one that's ordering the pace of our, the steps of our journey. And so I think that doesn't mean that it's all his responsibility or that it's all my responsibility. It is this co-laboring thing. And I think that's where people, especially Christians, when they over spiritualize, those kind of things. Like, man, God said it, I believe it. I'm just trusting him. And, he's entrusted this thing to you. Yeah. And you got to cooperate with him to bring it forth.
Yep. So that's good. I had that thought on the way up here. I was driving thinking about some work stuff, and even my daughter and I had a conversation last night about some stuff. But sometimes with like employees and volunteers and stuff, I'm like, you have the keys. Like, you make a decision and I'll forgive you if it's wrong. We'll just cross that bridge when we get there. But like, I trust you. Like, go make decisions and be messy if you have to.
Right.
And I think he wants that for us.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like, get out there and do it.
Yeah.
You're good. Like, go. Why are you asking me? I've given you the authority, the keys, my spirit. Like, go do it. in a way. But
well, again, the process doesn't make him nervous. I remember a friend of mine years ago preaching on the kingdom, and he said it's kind of like bowling with the bumpers up.
Yeah.
We're so nervous about getting it. And God's like, I got the bumpers here. I'm wanting you to get this down the lane more than you want to get it down the lane.
Yeah.
And just trust him in that. And, that's huge. So,
it is.
Because it takes it takes the pressure of performance off.
Yeah.
I'm going to show up, be faithful to the thing that God's given me in the best way that I know how.
Yeah.
And I'm going to trust the results to him. He's the accelerator. He's the multiplier.
Yeah.
I just got to bring what he's given me to bring.
Yeah.
So.
I've shared this story probably 1,000 times, but he showed me those, what was it called? The boundaries on the bowling.
Yeah.
Bumpers.
Bumpers, yes. He showed me that in a real way. I went to give a word to this lady in Home Depot one morning. When I was trying to learn how to hear his voice and stuff, I'm like, just show me anything and I'll act on it. And he showed me this very specific old lady with curly hair and these big frame glasses. Told me what aisle she was on at the Home Depot. And I was in my car to go home.
Right.
And I, for some reason, was having a bad day. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'll just go in there and prove that I'm seeing this in my own imagination.
Right.
To prove that it's not you. And so I go in there, and there's the lady in the aisle he told me she was at. Had a message for her sister. She's in the hospital. This very specific stuff.
Right.
And for whatever reason, I did not follow through with it.
Wow.
Which is crazy to me now. And I left, and I walked, and I drove off. And by the time it was too late to turn around and go back, I talk about shame and oh my gosh, what did I just do?
Right.
The unpunishable or the unforgivable sin.
Man, he's not going to trust me with anything else. He fluttered off. He's not coming back for a long time until I've paid my dues.
Then you saw her on the news on a car wreck that night.
No. And the sister, she's revived by her sister who's in the hospital. But he so sweetly, he gently was like, hey, it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to get to her.
Yeah. I got to back up. Don't worry.
I got to back up. It was just an opportunity, a chance to partner up with me.
Yeah.
It's relational.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that gave me so much. Like the next time that happens, I'm like, oh man, I actually would love to partner up with you on this.
Yeah.
It's not production at all. And every time you recognize that you're led with peace, there's no production, I've got to get a butt in a seat. It's like, no, it's out of a pure place.
Yeah.
But
well, I think it's like, not that everything's about, speed, but I think we do get to choose to cooperate with moments of acceleration in our life. And we can choose to slow it down.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so again, not that it's about, I'm going to do these three things and I get to my destiny, but it's, we do have a role in that. And I think, the whole story of the Israelites, a 4-week journey into a 40-year, why did it take so long? Well, was there some non-agreement there? Was there some, frustration there?
We didn't issue of the heart that didn't get worked out.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
I think so much of it's tied to just relinquishing it to him.
Yeah.
Yielding to him.
Right.
And maintaining that in the midst of anything that's going on.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you say that about like moments of acceleration. I feel like I've seen that the most in my life when I've messed up, I've made a mistake, and I just actually acknowledge it to him, and I'll be like, oh, I don't want to miss that again.
Yeah.
Like I'm with you. And then it's just like bang, 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 bang. Like things happen. And it's never been the shame or the condemnation that I missed it, or I messed up or whatever. It's like, it was never about the mistake. It was actually about the growth out of that.
Yeah.
That accelerated so many things. But it's just funny that you said that. I was like, yeah, that's definitely a pattern in my life.
I've seen it.
Kind of like making messes.
When bad things happen to me,
Yeah.
which is a lot. I tell people, like, if you were to go with me today on a drive, just go with me on my day and job shadow me, you're going to think James has had some bad luck.
A little curse.
He's cursed. But it really is every opportunity where something legit bad happens to me. It's like, I get giddy about it. I'm like, nope, I get to be him in this and maintain that and apply it to the world. I get to apply him to the world whenever my order's wrong or some car hits me, whatever it is. And I get excited about it.
Yeah. Crazy.
But it's growth for me.
Right.
It's like, oh, you're pretty untouchable now. It's like, hit me, turn the other cheek. Come on. You're not going to get anything else but his fruit out of it.
Yeah. I'm still working on getting my order wrong.
Oh, man.
He's still working on me. Come on,
It's the
somebody.
devil in the details. You know what I mean?
It's the little things. Yeah.
Well, it's funny, I've said for years, one of the things, incompetence.
Yeah.
For me is one of the hardest things to deal with in other people.
Yep.
And I mean, if I walk into an organization and things aren't done well, or a restaurant, or it drives me crazy. But the more that I've asked the Lord about that, He says that's what you do to yourself. It's this self judgment that you won't let yourself make a mistake, and you mirror that on others. And when you start giving grace to others, maybe you can start giving grace to yourself.
Yeah.
Woo, come
That's
on.
a good word, though. That is a good word.
And incompetence seems to be pretty rampant everywhere.
Yeah.
I had that yesterday happen.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty good most of the time. I got my hair cut yesterday.
Yeah.
And it was like, I hope she's not watching this. But it's
not ideal.
It was long, it was so long in the middle, kind
Yeah.
of like these kids that you see nowadays, what the kids do. And I'm like, I'm not one of these broccoli-headed teenagers. Like, why? I told you to cut it off the top, you know? And so I went to my bathroom, got the scissors out. I was like, I'll have to do it myself.
Yeah.
And I got so mad about it yesterday. And then I caught myself in the middle of it like, you're steaming and this is really silly. You don't get that mad about stuff.
Right. What's at
So
the
I
bottom
went
of
back.
this?
I went back to the place and was super nice about it.
Yeah.
They were understanding.
Yeah.
But anyways, this fun
Did you
thing
get to
that
the
happened
bottom
yesterday.
of it?
I chilled out on it. I captivated that anger. It's like, wait a minute, this is silly. Because I've told them before, they're like, how do you want this? I don't want to mess it up. I'm like, well, the worst thing we can do is shave it all off.
Yeah.
And I'll live.
Yeah.
But
well, it's always a great opportunity. Anytime you have these big reactions, it's like to step back and say, now, why am I having this big of a reaction to this issue, which is not that big of an issue?
Grab
you
it.
know, right.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's so fun. I have had that a lot recently. It's just like, well, that's definitely a trigger. Wow, that's definitely. I see how that thing is.
Right.
It's funny that you said the self-judgment thing. Actually, somebody just gave me a word about that a couple of weeks ago. They were like, "Hey, I feel like you have this self-criticism."
Yeah.
And you've spoken to yourself like that, and I'm like, yeah. I'm like, that's all. That's
You're like,
all.
who asked you? I know the kind of prophetic word I'm looking
Please stop
for.
reading my mail. I don't like this. He said it. It was so loving the way he said it. But he was just like, hey, like, you don't have to keep going with that. Like, that's already been accomplished.
Yeah, right.
Like, the Lord actually took care of that. Little did he know I'd had a dream about it the night before, in which that thing was actually being addressed, that it was the very thing that causes me to disconnect from the Lord. Is when I get into self-judgment, self-criticism. Because I start going off on myself and just like, oh, I should have done that. Yeah. Well, just like, you should be better and you need to live up to that and you need to be this way and you should have been in the fruit in that and how dare you like respond in that manner and you better do it perfectly. Anyways, but when he said that, I was just like, the self-judgment is such a trap.
Right.
It's to me, it's like that little snare.
Yeah.
It is the thing, and maybe it's just for me and my little perfectionist self that I didn't ever know I was until recently.
Yeah.
But just that thing of just like, don't take the bait.
Yeah.
That is the snare that'll trip you up.
Well, the end of all of that, right, is if you keep asking why. Well, why is it bad if I mess up? Well, they'll see me as incompetent. Well, why is that bad? Because if I'm incompetent, they won't like me. Well, why is that bad? Because if they don't like me, they'll leave me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll be alone and and you get to the root of that abandonment or rejection or whatever it is that again is already accomplished in Christ, but that's the hole that the enemy is trying to fill with fear.
Yeah.
Right. You better keep up the walls. You better keep up perfectionism or this whole thing's coming down.
Right.
Yeah.
You better not make a mistake in your business or the whole thing's going to, and that is the dismantling.
Yeah.
I think that is a part of sanctification, that we're saved and we're being saved, we're the work is done and yet he is continuing to do this work of renewing our mind and bringing us into alignment of who we are in him.
Yeah.
And it's peeling these layers. And I think when people can realize that inner healing and the renewing of the mind is not something that we go to the altar and get prayed for to happen. It's a day by day, moment by moment that's available to anybody.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing I try to encourage people with and bring healing out of the non-weird woo-woo and even our charismatic Pentecostal realms. It's like, this is the way of the kingdom.
Yeah.
That something happens, Holy Spirit reveals it to it, and we get a chance to metanoia, to change our mind, to repent, to go in the other way, to change the way we think about this and let God heal that place so that it doesn't become a place that the enemy has anymore. And that's maturity. That's the maturing process.
Yeah.
That's normal kingdom living.
Yeah.
The Lord actually gave me the same, the way he taught me to break it down was the question, then what?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that happened to you. You feel like you have this standard to live up to. Okay, well then what? Then what happens if you don't live up to that?
Yeah.
Okay, well I feel completely exposed. Okay, well then what?
Right.
Okay, well I'm going to be hung out to dry and publicly humiliated. Okay, then what?
Yeah. So was I. Right.
Right. Yeah.
I already did that one. I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I love that. Nobody else I have known, they've said that. Like and then why?
Right.
Why would that be the case? But I think being able to dissect those things are vastly important.
Yeah.
To being able to actually weigh, what is the core fear that I carry? What is this core misconception that causes me to feel separated from God? Because I think that's the ultimate wrestle is I just feel separated. I feel like you're not with me. I'm going to be abandoned. I'm going to be rejected. I'm going to be alone again.
Right. Well, people want to fight the symptoms. They want to medicate the symptoms. They want to prophesy to the symptoms. And it's or give, God's going to do this. None of that matters if the core issue is still there.
Totally.
And it's like,
well, you can't live it. You can't sustain anything.
Right.
With that there.
What do they say? Deal with the root or you'll forever be dealing with the fruit.
Oh, yeah.
And that's my spiritual parents have said that for years. It's like, you got to go to where this thing's growing from.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just dealing with the tendrils that are coming out all over the place.
That replace themselves.
Yeah. So
deal with the root.
Or you'll forever be, dealing with the fruit.
Yeah.
So
Sometimes that takes courage too. I mean, DT said this a lot, but it's like if you feel like you're being attacked, it may just be an extremely uncomfortable something you're holding on to.
Yeah.
It may not be an attack at all.
Yeah.
But a lot of that scary stuff, it's like if you can grab it and captivate it, it's like go into it.
Yeah.
It's like whack-a-mole, that game where they pop up. It's like hit that one. Yeah. The Lord pushes those buttons and brings them up for you to sever it.
I think that's, for me, there's a difference, right? If I know it's an issue of my own heart, it's because it's happening very much within me. It rattles me. It's like, whoa, that thing is, it's very similar. They're very patterned. That's how you can tell. If it's the enemy, it feels like an outside voice.
Right.
It feels like a projection coming at you that, once you can kind of ground yourself and you're like, okay, no, I see that is definitely the voice of the enemy.
Yeah.
But being able to actually have the discernment, because I think so many people just throw it as that was the enemy. That's the enemy. That thing got me. And it's like, no, dude, that's your little pain button.
Yeah.
Poor little buddy. That's your heart.
Yeah.
I want to help you heal.
Yeah.
Well, and there have been situations in my life where I'd, you walk through things, areas of vulnerability or whatever, and as much as you try to hear the voice of God and recognize the voice and all that, sometimes you're just like, I don't know if this is me or the enemy or the Lord. I'm just in the middle of this. And I'm trying to learn to, instead of fighting that thing every day, I just set it to the side and I say, Lord, I don't know if this is my fear, if this is the enemy, or this is you. And so I'm going to set this over here to the side. And if it's you, I need you to bring somebody that I trust to speak this thing into my life, to help me, maybe an area of weakness or an area of a blind spot in your life, whatever it is. But I'm like, I'm not going to let this thing continue to torment me.
Yeah.
So good.
Because the enemy will absolutely torment you with ruminating thoughts and all this kind of stuff. And just be able to say, you know what, God, even with that going on, you love me. I'm going to set this over here. I don't understand what's going on with that. But if it's that big of a deal, I'm going to trust you to bring, because there's wisdom in the counsel of many.
Right.
God brings our friends and people into our life to be able to speak to us in blind spots and all that. And I'm like, God, you're going to have to bring a dream, vision, person I trust, something to speak to this. Otherwise, I'm not going to be receiving this torment.
Yeah. That's good.
Because a lot of times I think even if you're a believer, if you're so fear-based, shame-based in your thinking, the enemy will use that. And is it Bill Johnson that said, fear often masquerades as wisdom.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And, so then you're like, I don't know what is this thing? And again, it's his word, but it's also, I think, being willing to say, you know what, I'm going to set this thing to the side and I'm going to trust you that at the right time, you're going to bring the right person to help me deal with this.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go on with you. And
dude, that's maturity.
Yeah, it is.
That is maturity, where you can actually separate, hey, my identity isn't this issue.
Right.
My identity isn't this thing. And this, I can hold it open-handed.
Right.
I will let you speak into it. I'm not missing a thing because you're the good shepherd.
Right.
So I'm just going to roll.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be good no matter whatever this is.
Right.
And if it's from you, you will bring this thing back around.
Right.
Yeah. And he leads you into all truth.
Yeah.
It's like you give it to him. If you don't honestly understand it, it's like just give it to him.
Right. In best case scenario, you just dropped off a torment from the enemy.
That's true. Yeah.
And you're not dealing with it.
Yeah.
So I think, again, it's just, learning.
Flushed a turd.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Essentially, yeah.
So childish.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
She's 12.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I think mentally we probably should be. We got to have a little fun here.
Therapy is good for
there's
us.
something sweet too, and what you said earlier about not prophesying or praying into the symptoms.
Yeah.
But like if you go after the real heart issue, or even that, the honesty of it,
Right.
and when it comes with understanding, there's some like seriously real authority at the end of the You have to have the understanding to get to actual authority. I think.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just screaming at a wall.
Right.
And there's no real change.
Right. Well, the enemy, I know, at least in my life, he always uses second guessing and self-doubt as a tormenting mechanism.
Yeah.
And so if you can't get off of that roller coaster or that merry-go-round, it's really hard to get freedom and real breakthrough. And so I've just learned, for me, if I can just set that thing and say, I'm getting off of that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to trust you for that, Lord, if that's really you.
How do you practically do that? Is it like a conscious change of mind? Do you write it down? Do you like?
I mean, I think for me, I'm a big journaler, so I'm always journaling, things. But I just see. I'm a big visualizer too, so I just visualize. Just like in Sozo, minister, you'd see somebody. Lord, I'm going to give this to you, or I'm going to receive this from you. I just see myself giving that to the Lord. Yeah. Because he said, come to me, all you're heavy laden, I'll give you rest.
Yeah.
And like, Lord, I need rest from this.
Yeah.
And even if it's an issue that you want to deal with me, what's happening right now is torment.
Yeah.
And so I know that's not from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think, God may bring things up in our life and the enemy be like, ooh, this is his really big pain point. We're going to turn this up on turbo.
Yeah.
And the Lord's like, no, that's not what I'm trying to do. So I think learning to trust him in that process. And, because, I think the things that we think are like, this has got to happen right now. God's got such a different timeline and a different methodology of dealing with things. And, I saw somebody the other day on Facebook. They're like, God's built my stupidity into my life plan, and I'm like, he's built our journey, and our frustration and our struggle into the plan of what he's trying to do with us. And so I just really, all this intense, I think, God's got to do this now, and if I don't do this, the nations are going to hell. I mean, all this kind of, I just really have disconnected from a lot of that. And I'm like, you know what? God can do anything he wanted to in a moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's more concerned about me being molded and made into the image of Christ than he is about doing anything through me.
Yeah.
And as an outcome. Yeah. And so.
Yeah. It's like you want to have the biggest impact. Let him change your heart.
That's right. That's right. Then you like Peter, get up and 3,000 are saved in one sermon.
Yeah.
Not because he was perfect, because he was yielded, because he was,
But he went through the process of the fire.
That's right.
Yeah.
He went through that whole thing with the Lord, and the Lord restored him.
That's right.
Which is the issue of the heart.
That's right.
I think.
Yeah.
And realizing this ain't me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the perfect picture, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of just, I love Peter. He's actually one of my faves.
Yeah.
He's a wild cat.
That's a good one. Yeah.
He is a wild cat.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Matt, thanks for hanging out with us today.
You got anything else?
I'm everything's out. I mean, I'm
just saying.
Yeah, gold and all that. Have you been painting recently?
Yeah. My mom died in 2018. The Lord led me to start painting, which I'd never done.
Yeah.
Because it's much more intuitive, and my basketry that I've done for years is much more structural, architectural, right and wrong way to do it, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And the Lord started leading me to do that. And so I've just been doing it the last few years only as a kind of cathartic emotional outlet. And then it was, I guess, the last year or so, I started thinking, well, this is to a place where I can see something happen in here where I can bring my baskets and these paintings together. And so I started creating these niched panels that are like 3.5 inches deep, but they've got a niche in the panel. So the top is a painting, but I create this niche in the panel where I put one of my basket sculptures. And so totally unique. Nobody's doing anything like that.
So they complement one another.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
cool.
So I'd come up with the color scheme in the painting, and which is maybe much more textural than painting, but it's with cold wax and oil and other substances. So you get this really like rock face, distressed metal kind of look.
Yeah.
And which is really cool. And it's a matte finish, which I love, not super glossy and all that. And then in the back, I'll use a contrasting color and create, something sculptural in there. And I'm loving it. It's completely different. And I told the Lord, I'm like, well, I don't know if this is you, but I'm loving it and I'm going to do it and we'll see.
Yeah.
And right about the time that I started really pressing into that, a friend of mine back from Asheville called me and he said, we're turning our studio in the River Arts District into a gallery. And I was praying about who to put in it. And you're the first name that,
Cool.
And I'm thinking I was done with all that.
Yeah.
And I just felt a release to do it. And I said, well, I got some new work that I'm not sure you're going to like or dislike, whatever. And so I sent half baskets and half these niche panels.
Yeah.
And doggone it, that was the first thing that sold. It was almost a $4,000 piece. And cool. It was just, again, kind of the kiss of God. Like, I got you. Like, you love this. This is the direction we're going.
Yeah.
And,
cool.
So again, I'm loving it. And it's in this season of things not being as they always have been, this has been a respite for me to create, and they're selling, which my business side loves, but I'm just enjoying making them. And of course, I'm such a doer. I'm like, I sold one, then I came back and made like 15. Because I'm like, of course, this is the new thing. We got to do this, And the Lord's like, okay, slow down. We got this. But I'm enjoying it, and it's a different expression.
Yeah,
and
that's cool
for me. And I felt like the Lord told me several years ago that. That I was going to have a whole nother season of creativity. Cool. It was going to be different than what I had been doing. Yeah. And this feels like a beautiful expression of that.
That's neat. Yeah. That's what I was going back. It reminds me of an episode that we had with Shay Bynes.
Yeah.
What the thing that she said at the end of it is like, ask the Lord to speak to you in a way he doesn't normally speak to you.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like, hey, is there another creative outlet that
absolutely.
I don't know that I have?
Absolutely.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah. Good stuff.
It is. I love what you do. I love all of your stuff. It's so fun. So if anybody hasn't seen Matt Tommey's stuff, go check it out. Definitely. Facebook.
Yeah, MattTommey.com is my artwork.
Yeah, cool. But I love just all the things he puts on Facebook. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, and mentorship as well. You still.
Yeah, Matt Tommey Mentoring. We've still got our Created to Thrive Artist Mentoring Program. Cool. And I think we're probably 1,300 members around the world. Good. Just about every creative medium. And so, it's great, to see people walking in what God's called them to do. Yep. And even that's always I think it's a challenge, even like for preachers and for coaches and people like me. It's like, even when things are not going the way you think they ought to be going in your life, you still can get up and preach the goodness of God and teach the things that God has shown you, and God's showing up in incredible ways in their life. Yeah. And you're like, man, the kingdom still works. It may look different for me right now, but the principles still work. Yep. And it's good. So we're still very much in the middle of all that. So
good.
That's cool. Good. Yeah, you got to go check it out. The reason I was hitting on the Facebook thing is because you always post some random but beautiful, encouraging. Like, I always catch it at the right time, and it's just
timely is what I was going to say.
Dang, yeah. It's so brilliant.
Well, I never plan it. It is all the best stuff. Always is me sitting there. Like that thing the other day, I'm like, Tanya's we're watching TV, and I'm just like, or 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm up, and this download just comes. Thankfully, my wife had the idea 5 or 6 years ago to get one of our team members to go back through on my Facebook and get all of those.
Good.
Brilliant.
And we've so they're all in a running document now on my Google Drive.
Are you going to publish a book for that?
Well, I actually took a lot of the things I was writing, God's Plan for Living kind of came out a lot of that. A lot of the things that I put in the adjoining devotional book that's called Awakening to God's Kingdom Within, that came out of that as well. And then it's amazing with ChatGPT what you can do. Like, I've taken it like, take all of these and give me themes.
Yeah.
Or write blog articles from only this content.
Yep.
So good.
And it makes me sound so much better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
But the things that show up on Facebook, they're just me just sitting there doing, you know.
Good.
So.
I rarely comment on anything.
Yeah.
Just because I don't, unless I like 100% believe in it.
Yeah.
Then I might comment.
Yeah.
Yours gets some comments from I'm like, yep, that's it.
He's a comment troller on you.
He's a troller.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's very cool.
Awesome.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Always appreciate you.
Yeah. Love what you guys are doing. So thanks.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Ancient Way podcast, drop us a like, share with your friends, share with your family. And if you'd like to support us and what we are doing, and you would like to play a direct role in our growth and things that we do in the future,
We have a donation spot at the bottom of our show notes, so you can click on that, give however much you want. We appreciate absolutely everything. We appreciate our listeners. And everybody that's already come alongside and encouraged us, and even everybody that's been on our show. So thanks, guys.